God has always given us signs from above.
Hi, this is Lucy B, and welcome to Signs from Above. So, Christmas is right around the corner, and I truly do love this time of the year, and especially, again, you know how I love these stories where God's in the workings of everyday life. Well, there's this particular story that, I loved it. I loved it. So, it was a Christmas miracle at a homeless shelter. So this story came from a woman, and she submitted this to the Good Faith Media. So let me tell you her story. It's pretty amazing. So this happened on Christmas Eve in 1997, and she had an experience that she wouldn't believe if she had not lived it herself. So she was working as a director at a large gospel rescue mission in New Orleans, and it was her first holiday season on the job. So the chaos of a homeless shelter is just amplified during the holidays. So everyone from volunteers to local celebrities are coming in and out of the facility, dropping off donations, and even just looking for human interest stories. But on this particular Christmas Eve, things were particularly hectic. They were short-staffed, and the weather was just completely bitterly cold. So there was more people seeking a place to sleep than ever before. And she was assigned to work at the main door, turning people away when they had no more room to offer. And from what they said is that all the other shelters in the area were also full. There was just she knew that there was no place to go, as she had looked for she had called them all and asked if they had room, and they didn't. But it started to get colder. The sun began to set. And as you know, well, maybe you don't know, but if you're around snow and all that, you know that once the sun begins to set, it can get really cold, especially in the wintertime. So the sun began to set. A woman walked in with two children, a boy and a girl who were 10 and 12 years old. The woman was well dressed, and she assumed that she was there to make a holiday donation. However, she approached her with tears in her eyes and explained that she and her children had just fled their home due to her husband's drug problem, and they were now homeless. They were already visited every shelter in town, but there was just no room for them anywhere. She had zero space to offer them. She explained that they couldn't help and that she would need to find another solution. And as she was trying to explain this, the front desk phone rang. So frustrated, she had to ask the woman to wait a moment while she answered it. On the other end was a woman named Joyce. She explained that she had been praying and felt that God was telling her to prepare her home and a family of 3 who needed her help. So Joyce went out and purchased decorations, presents, and food, but she couldn't find the family that God had in mind. She had called every shelter in town, but no one knew what she was talking about, thought she was a little crazy. She was stunned by what she was hearing. The director was stunned by what she was hearing, actually. And she looked across at the lobby at the woman and her children and huddled together and crying. She realized that Joyce's call was for them. She crossed the lobby and told the woman the call was for her. Joyce came to pick up the family, and they spent Christmas with her, opening presents and sleeping safely. 2 days later, they got on a bus to stay with a friend who could actually be there to help them. So this experience taught her miracles are all around us, even when we don't recognize them. They can appear in the midst of chaos and stress, like a shooting star or a family in need suddenly celebrating in abundance. So this story immediately reminded me of the innkeeper who turned over Mary and Joseph as she was about to give birth. I think this innkeeper, I know that I read stories in there saying how heartless this innkeeper was, how heartless it was. But they had so many people coming in for the census that was required during that time, that they had to come there. The Romans forced them to do this. So all the people that were coming in, there was just so many. And I do hear how heartless of him to turn her away. Well, it kind of goes back to this story. how do we not know that the innkeeper felt horrible turning the people away, but there was just no place to put them? What was he to do? He had zero place to put these people that we call Mary and Joseph. Kind of like this woman, here she has a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, but she has literally no place to put them in this shelter. What is she supposed to do? But we know that this is exactly how God had it planned. This is exactly how it was. The birth of Jesus would not be what it is without his humble beginnings, like the Bible prophesies. So can you imagine our nativity scenes being that of a woman in a hospital surrounded by nurses and doctors? Instead of singing "Away in the manger, no crib for a bed," I guess we could sing, I don't know, "Away in the hospital, plenty room for a babe." I don't know. Things would definitely be very, very, very different. But in all seriousness, look how God took this story and how we celebrate his humble beginnings every Christmas. In turn, I think it believes it humbles us. So let's go back to this story. If this story had not happened, it would have affected this woman the way that it did, still 26 years later. So God was in the midst of all of this. He was caring for the mother, giving her a place when there was no place for her and her children to go on Christmas Eve. The older woman with nobody to celebrate Christmas with. And this director just got the blessing of watching it all unfold. Wow, God. I know Christmas can be such a busy time of the year, but take some time to look hard for a miracle this holiday season and keep your heart open to the presence of God. I promise it'll be there if you ask him. Verse of the day, kind of a given. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddled cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. So that's what I have for this week. Merry Christmas and happy birthday, Jesus, right? Happy birthday, Jesus. That's what this is all about. So I will see you next week. Goodbye.